The notion of a live-action to animation adaptation is usually met with varying levels of either anticipation and applause, or cynicism and disgust. But the question is, would the time-traveling, space-faring, monster-featuring sci-fi epic that is Doctor Who work as an animation? Before I continue, I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who has seen my first adventure as the Purple Doctor in Doctor Who fan film, How Time Flies. The response has been absolutely overwhelming and I adore you all. Thanks again. If you wish to see it, the link is in the description. So, back with the topic. Doctor Who as an animation. Would it work? I think it could, but only in a very miraculous set of circumstances. Firstly, we all know that the Doctor has already forayed into animation before, with The Infinite Crest, Dreamland, Scream of the Shulker, that attempt to make one in the 80s, as well as what they're doing with the missing episodes. Each one of them is admirable and I love them. However, we all know that doing animation on a BBC budget isn't exactly easy per se. But for the sake of hypothesis, because this is just a hypothesis, let's say the BBC come to a deal with a company like Netflix to do a Doctor Who animated series. Because it's out of so many creative ideas that anyone has ever done in regards to animation, Doctor Who has possibly one of the greatest amounts of potential out of any of them, and I don't say that lightly. So why? That's the big question. Well, firstly, the major difference, the main perk of animation over live action is that you can accomplish anything visually that would be either too difficult or too expensive to do in live action. So we've already lifted off a restriction that has held Doctor Who back. We've already somewhat seen this, as a fair few sequences in The Infinite Crest would have been a bit too difficult to do in live action, regardless of how crude the animation was back there. Now, Doctor Who is a program that likes to go anywhere within the budget, but if you replace that with the artist's pen, then the Doctor's adventures in time and space are restricted by imagination alone, and Doctor Who is certainly a show that would benefit heavily from a unique 2D art style. Let's briefly look at other sci-fi animated shows which were made roughly 20 years ago, like Cowboy Bebop and Batman the Animated Series. Both from different sides of the world, yet both having devastating artwork that channels the passion that their creators put into them, like Spike's fall sequence set to the haunting sound of the choir in The Ballad of Fallen Angels, or the powerfully animated and often minimalistic cinematography that Batman TAS featured regularly, like the sight of Mr. Freeze gazing at the ballerina, representing his love for his fallen wife.
This is how I'll always remember you, surrounded by winter, forever young, forever beautiful. Rest well, my love. The monster who took you from me will soon learn that revenge is a dish best served cold.
So, art aside, how would it affect the content? Well, very likely Doctor Who would be a 26 episode series of 25 minutes per episode, the US standard. It sounds very little compared to regular Who, but it's all about how you use the time. If you do two-parters, you end up with 13 stories at 50 minutes, which is almost the new Who standard pre-2018. The continuity of the show in regards to the live-action show, if they run concurrently, would have to be something of a multiverse incorporating reboot or a very future-set continuation. I'd, as divisive as it is, honestly favour an animated reboot, as you could start from ground zero regarding the Doctor's entire origin, why he left Gallifrey, a brand new first encounter with the Daleks, and new interpretation of the Cybermen. You can change them all to your will. Let's start at how it would affect the Doctor. You could go as outlandish as you want, or as subtle as you want with the character design. You could give them a ridiculous hairstyle everyone could be baffled at, like Yugi Moto, or make them mysterious yet elegant, like the unused 80s Nirvana design. But the point is, you can make the Doctor look pretty unique and credible. Aside from that though, it provides a very easy route to avoid using regeneration as a plot point for however long you want. Because unlike live action acting, voice acting is lighter in terms of balancing multiple jobs. It's still difficult, but it will be possible to play the same role for hypothetically decades, like the Simpsons cast. Or alternatively.
Networks like animation because they don't have to pay the actors squat.
Plus they can replace him and no one can tell the diddly difference.
So there's that. Basically, you could give a single Doctor a big Finish length tenure should the show live long enough. And companions too. You would no longer be restricted to human to save costs on makeup and prosthetics. You could take a creature of any race from any time and put them with the Doctor. Much like in the 8th Doctor comics, he travelled with Destry, who for the most part resembled a fish. The possibilities are endless. The scale of Doctor Who would be increased dramatically. An animated version of Doctor Who would be able to stray away from the present-day Earth a bit more regularly. Obviously, to save money, backgrounds and assets would have to be reused in some forms, but there is a bit more to play around with than just the building of sets. Alien worlds would be easier to create with lush landscapes akin to those seen in the more LSD-filled Cartoon Network shows, such as Adventure Time and Steven Universe, as would utopian or dystopian metropolis of the future and the past. The TARDIS would also be pushed to be bigger, more expansive set that you could discover more of than just the console room. But of course, one of the main attractions of Doctor Who is the villains and the monsters thereof. And boy, you could go to town here. There's nothing that doesn't work in animation than a good old nightmare fuel-inducing eldritch abomination, and you could really have fun with this. The Cybermen would be particular favourites to see introduced this way, as you could really do some disturbing and disgusting things with the conversion process. Well, of course, keeping it as a family show. There is no limit to the monster or villain designs, whether you go humanoid with creepy as heck like Yami Merrick or Sartorius Kumar from the Yu-Gi-Oh franchise, or just full-on terrifyingly bestial like the Man-Bat. Animated villains have the unstoppable tendency to destroy dreams in anyone's head. Don't believe me? Read the bloody TV Tropes Nightmare Fuel page. Set an evening sight though, it's incredibly compulsive reading. With all this taken into account, you could expect some properly ambitious stories, right? I mean, I would honestly say that Doctor Who has boundless potential as an animated series, but it's all well and good just saying that. But if you break the hypothesis, there's seriously little chance of it actually getting made on this scale. For one thing, it would be too expensive to do on a license fee budgeted BBC, especially if the main show is still ongoing. Brand oversaturation would also be a thing. The BBC is hardly going to want two versions of their flagship sci-fi going at the same time. It's why anybody campaigning for a Paul Began series will forever go unfulfilled. It's a miracle we get people animating the missing episodes, to be quite honest. However, I take solace in the fact that Doctor Who as a concept is simply remarkable, one of the best ever created. It's lasted for 56 years on and off the air as a TV show, a TV movie, audios, comics, literature. One day, I bet it will have its day as an animated TV series. After all, both Star Trek and Star Wars have made the jump at some point in their lives, and as probably the next best known sci-fi property, I'm sure Doctor Who will too. So, what do you think could happen to Doctor Who as an animated series? How would you go about doing it? Let me know in the comments below. But until next time, see ya!